In 1946, Truman needed a clear policy to respond to both real and perceived changes in the global balance of power in the nuclear age. Inspiration for a critical foreign policy plan came from the Soviet expert George F. Kennan. In 1946, he sent his analysis of the post-war Soviet Union from his post in Moscow to Washington in a widely circulated 8,000-word long telegram. In July 1947, Kennan published an even longer version of his pessimistic assessment of the Soviets in the influential journal Foreign Affairs. Kennan's idea, containment, became the foundation of U.S. foreign policy for the next 4 decades. In the U.S., containment spawned a Red Scare. Fear of communism led to restrictions of individual rights and the systemic persecution of diverse groups of American citizens. A series of disturbing events between 1948 and 1950 accomplished Harry Truman's goal to, quote, scare the hell out of the American public. First, the Soviets caused an international crisis when they blockaded Berlin in hopes of gaining control of the divided city and thwarting U.S. efforts to rebuild a powerful West Germany. Between June 1948 and May 1949, the Soviets, locking down all roads leading to the city, forced the first showdown of the Cold War. The U.S. responded with the most remarkable air supply effort in history. For almost a year, U.S. transport planes carried food and coal into the city 24 hours a day. As they flew low over the city, U.S. pilots, earning the nickname the Candy Bombers, took special pleasure in showering the children of Berlin with candy. The Berlin airlift won the hearts of Berliners and humiliated the Soviets, who reopened the city on May 11, 1949. By then, the U.S. had realized its goal of unifying the western zones of Germany into a pro-Western state in opposition to the Soviet-controlled eastern zones. Policymakers had only a few months to enjoy the success in Berlin as the shocking news arrived on August 29, 1949, that the Soviets had successfully tested an atomic bomb. The Soviets' ability to catch up with American technology so rapidly revealed what U.S. leaders had suspected, that communist spies had successfully infiltrated the Manhattan Project. America's monopoly on atomic power was over. In October 1949, China fell to the communists under the leadership of Mao Zedong. The formation of the Communist People's Republic of China especially disheartened Americans because of their long-standing charitable and missionary aid to the nation and significant diplomatic efforts by General George Marshall to ensure that China would remain free. Marshall spent most of 1946 in China arranging a coalition between the Chinese nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek, and his communist rivals, led by Mao. Despite Marshall's efforts, the coalition faltered. Chiang's incompetence contrasted with the communists' rising popularity and superior organization. Full-scale civil war broke out in 1947, and by 1949, Mao led a unified China that allied itself with the Soviet Union.
Russia will never know one day of peace in China. Russia will never own China. China will remain free.
But it wasn't to be. Within weeks of the proclamation of the Chinese Communist state, Mao was off to Moscow to sign a pact with the Soviet Union, and other countries in the West slowly started to recognize the new regime in Peking. For the Kremlin leadership in Moscow, developments in China were a great boost. They now had a great Cold War ally. Mao would protect the long Soviet border with Asia, leaving Moscow free to concentrate its military resources in Europe. Mao, for his part, got the benefit of Soviet economic, diplomatic and military protection, while he established control of his vast country. It didn't take long. The first of the rural 5-year plans was put into force, and the Communist Party bureaucracy took hold of the countryside, transforming society. But more than that, October the 1st, 1949 was the day that set the pattern of superpower politics for a generation.
Americans worried that the new alliance between Stalin and Mao threatened to spread communism more widely in Asia. All these events in 1949 raised U.S. fears and seemed to confirm the basic premise of the Truman Doctrine, that communist revolutionaries threaten freedom around the globe. Any doubts about a world communist conspiracy faded with the news of a communist North Korean invasion of South Korea on June 25, 1950.